Hi, this is Mike with houseandlife.com. Today we'll be speaking with Mike Dingeldein. Together with his wife Cindy, they started the Community Design Alliance here in Hamilton, Ohio.
My name is Mike Dingeldein. I'm a registered architect, fourth generation Hamiltonian, have lived here my whole life, and always found architecture in and out around Hamilton to be very interesting and intriguing. Being an architect in a historic legacy city like Hamilton has been a great career. I've been doing it about 32 years now. When I was 12 years old, Andy Paul of Steedham & Paul, Hamilton firm, did my parents' house, and I thought that was a very cool process I saw them go through to be an architect. And so I kind of always knew. I went to Miami University in architecture school in the early 80s and have been doing it here in Hamilton my whole career ever since. We started CDA, Community Design Alliance, in 2012. Being a fourth generation Hamiltonian, I know about these buildings. My grandfather saw them get built. My parents used them, then they got boarded up, and then I saw them get unboarded up. And the idea of saving them and seeing them rehabilitated was very cool. And so there was a little bit of knowledge, there was a little bit of passion, and we were very interested in keeping our family and our focus and our drive time to be very local and be part of Hamilton. So when we started the firm, it was about 50% historic restoration and about 50% new commercial builds. The historical fabric that was here, even though it was very depressed, even though it was very old, was part of the industrial wealth era of Hamilton when the industrial families who built big, huge factories here became very wealthy, left very good bones behind. So the buildings that were just commercial buildings, the butchers, the bakers, the candlestick makers kind of buildings, they were very high quality, and so they lasted the test of time. They're worth saving. There's a whole lot of character in them, and there's a whole lot of architecture that comes from the era when architecture was about, the outcome and not the budget and the pro forma. And so it's just very much worth saving. And we've proved it in this building, the Mercantile building where our office is. We built apartments that hadn't existed in downtown Hamilton in 50 years, and they were instantly, rented up. They were instantly high demand because it's a very cool old building with very different characteristic than a typical apartment complex in any city. But certainly having downtown living coming back nationally was very much what happened in even a small town like Hamilton because we had the old bones of really great architecture fabric. Cool fabric. You kind of have to make it or find it once in a while in big cities, but in a historic legacy city like Hamilton, it's all around us, and so it is easier to land on a very cool legacy building and get it under control, site control, for much less money than on the riverfront in Cincinnati, obviously, and then make it into something that has demand instantly. Architecture is very affective, and we love our historic districts because the architecture makes us feel much better than we realize. It affects us in a positive way in ways that we don't realize. And again, it is not about the color of paint, it's not about the style being one or the other. It's about architecture that's very, very well thought through, and it has very incredible impacts on us. And so while we learned how to make buildings stand up, we also learned that certain buildings made us feel better, and why the hell is that? And that's what I think our historic districts are. They're affective, they're very well worked out architecture. They have an incredible sense of scale, and they relate to humans very well. When you can be far away from a building and see it and read it and understand it, but then walk right up to it and not feel overwhelmed because it was a giant building that you walked up to and now you're this little tiny being up against it, it is a way more impacttive building. So buildings you can see from 600 feet away and look great, they also ought to feel great when you're 6 feet away from them. And the brick texture and the brick patterns and the stone and the details, you can't see from 600 feet away. So buildings have to perform at all different scales. I think the demand for new urban architecture is we're getting more efficient with uses of materials and sizes of lots and lengths of sewers and lengths of sidewalks, but at the same time, we're pulling us together in a more social format again. And if you like that, urban living is for you. If you don't like that, some kind of farm or suburban living is for you. And so I think that's what makes urban demand greater, is the socialization is higher. And I again think after the pandemic, we're going to love the idea that we have front porches again. Architecture, we talked a little bit about it already, it has to have a scale. To me, a sidewalk, a space away from the street that you're not feeling like you're stepping in traffic, the curb isn't the sidewalk. a little bit of zone that gets to the house, and the houses that feel like they create an outdoor room, an environment. This is German Village, and you're looking at kind of a wall of buildings, all different styles of architecture, a pretty common theme of red brick in German Village, but an incredible sense of an outdoor room on the sidewalks. This is a long view away from this house. The most amazing thing about it, to me, is the punctuation of those modillions, the dentils across the eave. And that from a distance is striking, especially when there's no trees in the way of it. But as you get closer, those things scale very well with the house. They don't take away from the house. And so if this had been tiny dentils that you were looking at from this distance, you wouldn't notice anything. It'd be a line. It would not be the detail, the scale that works. So here's 3 houses of totally different architectural styles, and yet they work together because they have very, very good scaling. They have very equal setbacks, but they read from the street in very different scales, but read very, very well. So they're good neighbors, and they don't have to look alike. So those repetitive subdivisions don't give you a better sense of order. They give you less sense of diversity, and they don't bring scale together as the common denominator. Here are the details in the house, a little bit overscaled, but make this house look really, really attractive. Very symmetrical, but absolutely interesting in terms of how the details, the column at the corner that starts and stops the siding. What a great technique to make this house read well. As you get to bigger houses, yes, they were more expensive. Yes, wealthier people built them, but the architects made them more detailed so that, again, some details read from close up, some details read from far away. This house is huge. If it didn't have this amount of incredible, Victorian details, it wouldn't read well from this distance. It would just look like a mammoth house without the accurate amount of details. Here's the idea of the fence, the sidewalk, the street, the trees, how great this sidewalk feels in scale. That mammoth house on the left, it's got great scale that you can touch the brick scale and you can still feel it, and it's still within your understanding of how buildings come together. And then what a great sort of space when I walk to work down past this house, that fence, those trees, and the scale of the house behind it, perfect distance from the street to read the detailing that was put on that house. This cognitively makes you feel good. You don't know that you're being made feel good by the architecture, by the fence, by the trees, by the scale of the sidewalk, but you are, and it's fantastic. So one of the most impactful things happening in Hamilton is we're turning the old Champion paper mill into an indoor sports complex, conference center, hotel, all those things. The outcome of that is incredible because usually places like this end up becoming gravel parking lots. And this one is in the river corridor, in the downtown urban fabric of Hamilton. So it's a double win. One is we're saving something that's very important. 2 is we're turning it into something that's very impactful to bring new businesses to Main Street and High Street in our neighborhoods. It's 1 million square feet of the old plant under roof. It's going to have all these great features, and again, restaurants, bars, and stores, as well as indoor soccer fields and basketball courts and volleyball courts. So it's going to be transformative. It's that level. It's the 400-pound gorilla for urban development. But in the beginning of the day, it's saving an old paper mill from Hamilton's legacy, which was the largest coated paper plant in the world at the time it was built. So it's just a very significant place, and it's going to become a very significant driver of our future in terms of demand for housing, demand for businesses, demand for those kind of things.
Thanks again to Mike Dingeldein today. Great insight on the surrounding area in Hamilton. With any other questions, please visit our website, houseandlife.com. Thanks for watching.